Welcome to the show which gives you crypto confidence. We want to help you navigate the sometimes confusing world of blockchain and cryptocurrencies and make smart, informed choices as a consumer. Brought to you by the marketing communications team at Blocksparks. It's a great privilege to be talking today to Matthew Aaron from the Crypto 101 podcast. This is a show which really inspires us here at Blocksparks, as they too are totally aligned behind the mission to provide mainstream promotion and education about blockchain and crypto. They've been broadcasting for over a year now, they're way ahead of us, and Matthew has an exciting new project to share with us today. And through my own journey into this space, I've learned a great deal from Matthew and his colleagues. They get some amazing guests, and they've explored some fascinating projects going way beyond the 101 grade for my money, but always starting from the point of view of zero expectation of prior technical knowledge. I often take Crypto 101 along with me when I'm out walking, and it's helped expand my own learning. But unexpectedly this summer, one powerful episode left me with tears streaming down my face as Matthew courageously shared two very personal stories about how a blockchain world, a world with real transparency and freedom and accountability, could have saved the lives of people he loves. Matthew, welcome to Crypto Confidence, and thank you for the great resources you're putting into this world. We're going to link to that episode of your show where you talk about your baby and your sister, but I wonder, what was the moment when you realized that blockchain technology would have made the difference in both cases? How did that hit you?
First, Maya, thank you very much for having me on the show, and thank you very much for everything you do in the space. To answer your question, how could blockchain technology have made a difference in both those cases? Well, I think we have to go and look at the utility of blockchain and what it's good for first. The first case was with my son, and like you said, you're going to link in the description, but I'll give a little bit of backstory first. Is my son was born with a heart defect in southern China. And I am born in the United States. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, where my family lives as well. When he was born with a heart defect, he was in need of a heart surgery. And we had to transfer him from a small town in Guangxi province to Guangdong province to a hospital that specialized in heart surgery. During that time, we needed to collect around $30,000 to $40,000 to get the surgery, because China has a little bit of a different system than the United States. In the States, even though we're going to go into massive debt by getting these surgeries, the surgery will get done, and insurance or government or the family or whoever will burden that responsibility. But you will get the treatment you need. In China, it's a little different. You need to pay first, and then only by paying will you receive the treatment. If you can't pay, you get no treatment. Wow. So the question is how in 2008 do you send $40,000 when at the speed life needs it to China from the United States? And how do you crowdfund $40,000? I don't know about anyone listening to the show, but I personally do not have $40,000 liquid and ready to travel to China at the drop of a dime.
Of course,
so
yeah.
You have to talk to friends, you have to talk to family, you have to talk to, just acquaintances to rally up that money and then transfer it. And looking at the history and looking at Bitcoin and blockchain technology, that would have been the difference in that case.
So if you could have got that money transferred more quickly and just actually got the money sent at all, because I think there are issues with sending from one country to another and maximum amounts and all sorts that were a barrier to that. And you simply ran out of time in the end, didn't you?
Well, actually, we did. There was a couple of things. Time was a factor, and then the logistics of the bank itself was a factor. It seems as though we had to collect the money in the bank or the branch where I opened the account at, which was in Beijing, and I was in southern China. So it's kind of like being in New York and having to be in Florida and then fly back to New York to get money, to fly back down to Florida to use it.
Just incredible. And the banks have all the power and all the control, but it was your money and your family's money that you were just trying to assemble in one place to pay for life-saving surgery.
Exactly.
It's an incredibly moving story. And I wonder, obviously, this was years before that you started to learn about and explore blockchain, and what it was like the moment that you suddenly realized that this technology you were learning about was the thing that could have made the difference then, all those years ago.
It's interesting. It was a eureka moment. It was like,
Yeah.
I remember I was walking and listening to a podcast. It was Stuff You Should Know, and they had a How Bitcoin Works podcast on there, and they were talking about just explaining what Bitcoin is and how you can, be your own bank and transfer it, and they were talking about blockchain, and it just was like, wow. Here's something that I could have used. In that case, I mean, many other cases, since I've been living abroad for around 15 years now, there's been so many barriers of sending money or getting money or transferring money or paying bills or student loans when I had student loans. There's always been an issue. And blockchain is the answer to those issues for not only my son's situation, but also for just daily life situations that we are a globalized, little community now. You can hop on a plane and be in London or New York in half a day.
Yeah. Why can't the money keep up?
Exactly. Why can't the money keep up? But we have this technology, and people want to fight it and say it's, Ponzi schemes or some kind of scam that we're all going to get scammed. But the technology is right there. And I'm sorry, I'm not a tech guy, but there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me saying that this is sound, and we just need to, as a community, as a blockchain community, and I'm very happy like people like you are in the space doing what you're doing, is we have to, as a community, help and fight to make sure that the fudsters and these people that say that's a scam and a Ponzi scheme with no clue what they're talking about doesn't stop this tech from helping real people.
Yeah, and if they just keep listening to the institutions that feel so very threatened by it, putting that message out there, all it does is hold back something that is stealthily gaining momentum and gaining adoption. And this show and your show are part of that and spreading that information. So tell me about the Crypto 101 story. What was the inspiration for your podcast, and how did you get to where you are today with it?
Well, I think that the inspiration was frustration with Reddit. It was going out to the Reddit sites, asking 101 questions. I had a little group chat on social medias with friends that were also getting into it, maybe about a dozen of us. And, we were just, asking basic questions: how to set up Coinbase. Why is it taking so long? What is two-factor authentication? And just basically just trying to navigate. And the more that we reached out to Reddit and different communities to ask these simple questions, because we really didn't know who to ask. We didn't know anybody in the crypto space, and we didn't know anybody that was involved. But we knew that the Reddit was there, and it was just horrible, the responses that we got. So we decided, hey, let's make a podcast, So we went and we just did the research. We put the hard work in. We basically lost money so people don't have to by figuring out how to use Binance when it first came out. Was it actually a good exchange? We know now what Binance has become. But when it came out, we signed up and we tested it and we did a 101 on it and what have you. And we
now
just
people are queuing to get on Binance and waiting for them to open up again.
Exactly. They're queuing to get on Binance. They're queuing to buy cryptocurrency, and yeah, that was the inspiration. Is just to make a safe space for people to ask questions. And since I don't have a technical background, I think that I really want to put myself in the position to take the hits so other people don't have to. I go into conversations with people all the time, and they are way smarter than I am. And I'm not afraid to ask that 101 question and say, how does this work? What is it? And how is it going to ask the future? And hopefully people are listening to it and getting a little bit from it, so they're a little more confident going into the next question, going to the 102 or the 201s.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are some amazingly smart people working in this space, the people actually creating the projects.
Brilliant.
Disrupting so many different industries. And it's amazing to talk to them. And I love the way that you dig into them in the interviews and really get them to tell their stories in a way that isn't just baffling scientific over everybody's heads, but try and dig into the motivations and the problems they're trying to solve. That's where it's really exciting, I think.
Thank you.
It's clear that as part of your Crypto 101 group, that the audiences and the community that you've built up around that is a really important part of your whole show, that they parallel your growth. Do you feel that your audience has kind of learned with you and grown with you in the time over a year, is it the same audience who were unsure how to set up Coinbase, or have they evolved and grown with you? Are people still coming in who are completely new to the space? How is it working in the feedback you're getting?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that our community, and I wonder if other people's communities are the same, is mine has pretty much looked like Bitcoin prices for the past couple months. It's just going sideways. And I think we actually did a regression analysis on our listenership and the Bitcoin price, and we are correlated, or we're correlated with Bitcoin. And so when the Bitcoin price spiked, there was a lot of people rushing into Crypto 101, rushing into space, rushing into the community. And as Bitcoin price started to go down, so did, the people that were rushing in and the engagement. And I think that's, price, pushes people into learning about new things. Everybody wants to get rich quick and what have you. And so the community is right now still very big, vibrant, and very much in tune. But the people that are there right now are the old hats. They're the people that, were investing in ICOs. And then after that whole thing went and everybody's like, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Now they're holding on. They're holding their bags and they're saying, okay, let's see what's the next thing. We still believe in the tech. Yeah. And we're ready for the next wave of new people to come in and help them out.
That's really cool. So you've got quite an experienced cohort of people who've seen the peaks, seen the troughs, ridden it out, and they're basically hanging on in there because they believe in where it's going long term.
Exactly. Sadly, there's not that much to talk about anymore. Everybody loves the gossip and things like that. So when something hits with the prices or some China FUD or something like that, there's some stuff to talk about. But the sideways is really not good for the gossip and get everybody excited. So during this time, like I think everybody does in the space, they get to work. The developers are getting to work. The new projects are figuring out how to be sustainable and roll out projects and products. The podcasts like us, we're making content in expectation for the new people to come in the space and get ready for the next bull.
Yeah, because we don't actually need to manufacture gossip, do we? There's so much interesting work going on here. It feels like Twitter is constantly people trying to provoke arguments and challenge people to debate with each other about actually fairly meaningless contentions, and what's really exciting are the new projects in development, and making that accessible and exciting to new people. They don't want to come into some bickering space where everybody knows each other and is being snarky on Twitter.
I 100% agree. I feel that it's just the priest talking to the choir right now, and it's just everybody's just in crypto Twitter or in their groups just back and forth. The Telegram groups back and forth about a certain project is. I can't wait to see these products come out where people actually can hold them in their hand, and we can go and say, oh, so this is what you've been working on.
Yes, now let's
and then hold them
all get excited about that, not just the people within this community already, the people who are going to see what it's going to do for them and how it's going to change their lives. So it's like people like Johnny. Tell us about Johnny.
Well, Johnny's a guy who's been in Crypto 101 for a long time, and Johnny is basically an extension of everyone in the Crypto 101 community. He is the guy that, just goes down these journeys through different episodes. If he wants to know about ad fraud, or if he wants to know about how to set up a Coinbase account, that's the guy that I turn to walk with me down that path. And Johnny has just written a book the other day, Crypto 101, Johnny's Guide to Cryptocurrency. And in this story, Johnny is going down that path like we've all been through from either 2016 when I got in around September, October, or if you got in 2017 or 2018 and bought at all-time highs. Everybody's been through the same journey, and they were trying to get into the space. They've listened to their friends. They saw the Twitter FOMO, and they got excited, and they probably put in a little bit more than they should have, or put in money when they didn't know what was going on, but they wanted to be involved. And Johnny's the same way. Johnny put in money and wanted to get involved. And then through this story, Johnny evolves, and Johnny's friends and his family, just like everybody else's friends and family through this thing, probably hate a little bit on him, probably, give him a little FOMO so he buys a little more, or he, kind of loses his way of how to deal with his emotions. And the story with Johnny in the book that's coming out in the early part of November is telling that story of everybody's path in the space. So people can read it and give it to their parents or themselves or their kids. And so they can learn not only about the tech, learn not only about blockchain use cases, but also their emotions and how other people have went through these same motions so that they don't have to make these mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, we're all going to make the mistakes anyway, aren't we? But if we can learn from how Johnny did it and how he went through that evolution and came out the other side, a little bit older and wiser, maybe poorer, maybe richer. I think there's a bit of Johnny in all of us. So when's the book going to be available? Where can people get hold of it?
The book is going to be available in November, early November, the first or second week. We haven't set a date yet. We're still in final designs for the cover. And it'll be available in ebook on Amazon, paperback and hardback, also on iBooks and Barnes & Noble.
Great. So Johnny can get hold of it wherever he is in the world. And
hopefully anywhere you are in the world. And if not, I will print it here in Taiwan and ship it to you if you need it.
Fantastic. And so if Johnny's friends are unwrapping this book on Christmas morning, then where's it going to take them, do you think? Where are we going to go in 2019?
I think that it's going to take them into a new technology with a lot of hope and inspiration for connecting not only people, but also learning how to cross borders. And through this book, Johnny meets a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different use cases for blockchain technology. And it really brings them all together. And by the end of the book, I think that you're going to see Johnny in the same kind of situation that we've all found ourselves in blockchain, getting to know different people in the space that are in different countries, that are come from totally different backgrounds and educations, yet we're all connected through the same idea. And I think that's kind of what it's all about, this blockchain movement, is that we are all people. We all have the same kind of inspirations of wanting to be better, of wanting to help people and make everybody's lives easier. And we just get divided by silly things throughout the time. But really, when it's the core, we just want to do good.
Yeah. I think that's really exciting to hear, because I think maybe all of us working in our own little bubbles kind of have this sense, this inspiration that we're creating a better world and blockchain is really going to change things. And you need to reality check that with other people sometimes and say, is it okay to be this excited, to see this much potential in everything that we're doing and the projects that we're talking to? And I think I can't wait to read Johnny's take on it and see it through another set of eyes. I think we can all get caught up in our own excitement of it, and that validation, whilst it's important to talk to other people as well and not be in our bubbles. And I know that you're interviewing someone soon who's got a very, very different outlook on the whole thing. And there are haters out there and doubters, but I do think that going back to the podcast episode about your son and your sister and how a more transparent world where we're accountable to each other and where you can't hide the truth and you can't block people from doing what they want with their own knowledge or money or resources, it's going to somehow make a better world, a fairer world.
Well, I think that we have a choice. And I think that us, the average people, the consumers, we have a choice right now. And blockchain is the tool that's going to, just like any tools, it could be used for evil or it could be used for good. And right now is that I don't know. Right now is just an interesting time because we see that, companies are starting to experiment with the blockchain. We see that, Starbucks is going to have, Starbucks, let's just say, and we're going to have Target Cash and Walmart dollars or whatever it is. So is the future of our money going to be corporate monies? Is the future of our money going to be a Bitcoin where it's decentralized and we have control? Is the future of our money is going to be the US dollar on the blockchain? Is the future of blockchain just going to be, companies that are utilizing it and we don't even know how it's being used? Yet there's this amazing technology that could save somebody's life abroad or put somebody's criminal record on the blockchain where it's immutable and still safe. So when they go apply for a job and they're a convicted rapist or murderer, that they do not get placed in charge of women and give them the same opportunity as put them in prison before.
Yeah.
So there's there's different ways that blockchain can go. We, as I think the people, have an opportunity right now to advocate for its usage in our daily lives and the way that we want to see it. And I think that everybody has their own stories. Matthew Aaron is just one story of many that it could be used for the average person for a better world.
And we've got to make a decision, I think, and decide how we're going to shape that world, or are we going to leave it to the institutions to judge when we're allowed to have it and when we're allowed to play with it, and end up with the same kind of control, the way it's happened with the internet, where a few huge multinational corporations effectively control all of the content, all of the data, and who can access what. We can't afford to let that happen with blockchain. And it does feel like a real opportunity to make things better, to start over.
That's a very good point, because, we're still having this debate, especially in the States, is net neutrality. Is it? I think the EU has said that they have an access to the internet is a human right.
Yeah.
China, everything is is censored, and so even with the internet, we're still having this debate of something that we know is a transformative technology, I think that before we get to that point with blockchain, I think we need to really step it up. What's your opinion? What kind of future would you like to see using blockchain technology?
I think
I'm the person being interviewed now. I had to ask you a question. I apologize.
Well, you've been doing this for so long. We're bound to switch hats sometimes, aren't we? I feel like it is a real opportunity to kind of start over and get things right again. And I don't want to sound sort of too naive and idealistic here, but I feel like we've really gone wrong with the way data is owned and controlled in the world at the moment, and it's time for a backlash. And we have the technology now to do things differently. I think in Europe, we've got new data protection legislation this year and a much greater sense of a need for people to be in control of their identity, of their data, of what happens to stuff about them. And we've had so many huge scandals. I think Google's the latest, saying that, thousands and thousands of Google Plus accounts were hacked, so we'll just quietly close it down. They didn't
tell anybody. Yeah, exactly.
We'll just pretend it didn't happen. And even with the new legislation, the sanctions simply aren't adequate. I think people have given up too much too lightly. And blockchain gives people a chance to take control again of their identity, of things like their medical records, their employment records, of their finances and resources, and what they want to do with their own assets and earnings and acquisitions. And, I hope that we can, between us all, build a better world, whether that's the people developing amazing projects or people telling other people about it and sharing that knowledge, teaching other people and bringing new people into the space. I think we've just got to keep chipping away at it, one conversation at a time, and try and make sure that this does become truly decentralized and something that works for the good of everybody.
It's interesting. I love what you just said there. Is like Google just closed it down, and I remember the interview with Google executive. They said we didn't feel that the numbers were significant to report. And it's like, well, even if it's one person or three people or whatever, that's somebody's life.
Significant to them.
It's very significant to them. And you didn't. I thought that was quite funny. Not ha funny, but it's
It just shows you how these huge corporations like Google and Facebook look at an individual use case. It's just so utterly insignificant to them. And that's really what's wrong with the whole system, is that people become worthless.
One thing I really liked about doing this show, and you mentioned healthcare and putting healthcare on the blockchain or your health records on the blockchain, is that I didn't understand that a lot of these issues were issues before doing the show and before blockchain, because again, like you said earlier, there's a bunch of brilliant people in this space, and they're thinking, hundreds of years even ahead of where we are today, trying to create systems for us. And so health records on the blockchain, I didn't know that was a thing. And then once I put that on the show, I had somebody call in to the show and said, I literally just had to drive cross states. And he said 6 hours to pick up health records from a hospital to take them back to the hospital where my wife was about to get surgery or about to be looked at by a doctor. Yeah. And I was like, that's insane. And this is so common that we think it's everyday practice. And then people are trying to disrupt this. This is not disruption. This is common sense.
Absolutely. And it's your own data and information. I think in Spain, we've recently had issues with a very common pain medication that's banned in the UK because it has adverse effects in a large number of people with UK genetic background. And it's routinely prescribed here. And there's lots of people now trying to gather information and case studies to show that the risk is simply too high. And it's a drug that's banned in lots of other parts of the world. We have amazing healthcare here in Spain, but because no one's joined those sources of information together before and looked at it in context of the genetic link and the adverse reactions from this medication, people are having to piece it together anecdotally, and that just seems wrong. That data exists somewhere. We should be able to just quickly run the numbers and say, nope, you can't prescribe this to anyone of an Anglo-Saxon genetic heritage, too risky. But nobody seems to be able to do that. We've confused privacy and rights with the bigger picture. And it's ended up disregarding the individual when it comes to the things that really matter to them, and then hiding behind data protection when it comes to possibly exposing what institutions and governments are getting wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a really amazing statement that you just said. And I think that we can have both with blockchain. We can have our privacy, and we can have the betterment for society as well.
Yeah,
we can have our cake and eat it too.
Definitely. And we can have our own genetic medical records if I as a user know that I can link up my genetic record to my medical record, for example, then that's providing data that will help other people, but it's giving me absolute control over what goes on in my own life and my own body. And I think this is where it's going to get really exciting. We just have to help people grasp that potential and really get the message out. So bring it on, Johnny. I think we need to make sure this is under every Christmas tree in December. We're going to link to all the different places people can get hold of the book. And I hope that it's going to have that little step towards changing the world and making things better for the new year.
Well, thank you very much. We hope so too, or at least make people more comfortable about talking to people about blockchain, or maybe going out and getting some Bitcoin and trying it out.
Yeah, just start the conversation, have a go, each one teach one, and we'll move it on bit by bit. Thanks so much, Matthew, for coming on our show and telling us about your new book and about your own journey through this really exciting space. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Maya, thank you very much for doing what you do in the space, and thank you very much for having me on.
In today's crypto alphabet, D is definitely for decentralization. In the last session, we talked about how the state of a cryptocurrency network is determined by consensus, and the reason for this being necessary is that the ledger itself is distributed over large numbers of processing nodes. It's not all in one place, it's decentralized. No single entity can make arbitrary changes to the way it works because the decisions have to be made collectively. This distribution of control away from a central point also provides resilience and redundancy, in the same way that the internet itself was designed to be able to survive major outages and disruption. If the packets can still get from A to B, decentralized currencies on a distributed ledger are very hard to disrupt or damage. A hacker would have to take out the lot in order to break it. Decentralized systems are resistant to attack, degradation, and even intrinsic problems like bugs. No government can shut it down or switch it off, so it's a very powerful idea. Decentralization can have lots of meanings in cryptocurrency, and there are extensive and heated debates about which coins and which blockchains are the most truly decentralized. Bitcoin has the most nodes and the longest blockchain. Its ownership is decentralized across the greatest numbers of owners. But as the difficulty of the mining algorithm increases, the tools required to actually create Bitcoin get increasingly concentrated in fewer numbers of large corporate hands. This in turn raises the potential for a 51% attack on the network, which could occur if any one entity controlled more than half of it. And people say it's becoming more and more centralized. But there are many dimensions along which decentralization can be assessed, including how the coins on the system are traded, developed, owned, as well as mined. So be careful when you hear arguments about this one being more centralized than that one, and therefore qualitatively better or worse as a result. As always, do your own research. Decentralization is a philosophical fundamental in cryptocurrency, but the emergence of permissioned blockchains has altered things a lot. And in terms of the wider internet, that's not nearly as decentralized as we tend to think. The cloud just means someone else's drive, and odds on that drive your stuff is on will ultimately be owned by Amazon or Google, about as centralized as it's possible to get. So it's important to pay attention to this stuff, not get fooled by the idea of lovely, fluffy clouds of data floating freely in some utopian haze. And when it comes to crypto, you'll also hear about decentralized apps and decentralized autonomous organizations, things built using blockchains and smart contracts to distribute control. Decentralized exchanges are used to trade crypto assets, often peer-to-peer without a central point of deposit and brokerages. Basically, when an acronym starts with a D and it relates to crypto, then you can bet that stands for decentralized. So we have dApps and we have DAOs and DEXs. They're all based around the same principle of distributing control from the center out into a network. So whilst you will hear the term distributed a lot, which has a similar but not identical meaning, in our crypto dictionary for this week, D most definitely has to stand for decentralization. You just listened to a brand new episode of the Crypto Confidence Podcast. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please do take the time to like, subscribe and review us wherever you go to get your podcasts. And you can connect with us at CryptoConfPod on Twitter and in many other ways. Do check out the show notes for full details about how to get in touch. Meanwhile, please remember that nothing in this podcast or our related social media, nor indeed anything else published by Blocksparks OU at any location, is intended as financial, investment or trading advice. Everything we share represents our personal opinions for your information, education and entertainment only. You should not make any decisions based on anything we share with you, not without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with appropriate professional advisors. Crypto Confidence is all about being smart and informed and making the right choices for you. See you in 2 weeks.